The air at Fort Ramsey's training range carried a sharp tang of gunpowder and scorched metal, the kind of scent that clung to your clothes and lingered in your memory. It was a humid August afternoon in North Carolina, the kind where the heat pressed against your skin like a living thing. Inside the concrete-walled firing bay, the rhythmic crack of rifles echoed, each shot a testament to the disciplined chaos of military life. Amid the controlled frenzy, a woman in a faded navy polo and khaki cargo pants knelt by a cracked wall, her hands steady as she smoothed epoxy into the fissures. No one paid her much attention. To the elite soldiers moving through their drills, she was just another civilian contractor, as unremarkable as the steel targets or the humming ventilation system. Her name was Clara Mitchell, and she preferred it that way. Clara's badge read Facility Maintenance, Level B, a designation that made her blend into the background of Fort Ramsey, a sprawling army base known for training some of the toughest operators in the U.S. military. She was in her late 50s, with short-cropped gray hair and a wiry frame that spoke of a life spent working with her hands. Her tool bag, worn but meticulously organized, sat open beside her, revealing calipers, torque wrenches, and instruments most maintenance crews wouldn't recognize. She'd been patching a section of the range wall, damaged from months of high-caliber rounds, for nearly 3 hours. Her movements were deliberate, unhurried, as if she knew rushing led to mistakes that wouldn't hold up under pressure. The soldiers, mostly Green Berets running advanced weapons drills, flowed around her like water around a rock. They didn't make eye contact or acknowledge her presence. To them, she was part of the infrastructure, not worth a second glance. Clara didn't mind. She'd learned long ago that being underestimated was a kind of armor. But she wasn't deaf. Near the water cooler, a group of younger soldiers, fresh from selection, traded jokes loud enough to carry over the gunfire. $10 says she's a retired school janitor, one said, his voice dripping with amusement. Look at those arms. Probably mopped floors for 30 years, another added, smirking. Clara kept her safety glasses on, her focus on the wall. She'd heard worse. Much worse. These kids, with their buzz cuts and bravado, didn't know the half of it. A sharp clatter broke her rhythm. Someone had tossed a Beretta M9 onto a nearby ammo crate, the slide half-cocked, the magazine dangling like a loose tooth. It was the kind of careless disrespect for a weapon that made her jaw tighten. She didn't turn around, didn't give them the satisfaction of a reaction. Her trowel kept moving, smoothing the epoxy with practiced arcs. But in the reflection of her glasses, she caught the pistol's condition, a misaligned slide, stress marks on the frame, the kind of damage that came from someone forcing a jam instead of fixing it properly. She could have it running smoothly in under 5 minutes, but that wasn't her job. Not yet. The next morning, Clara arrived before dawn, her thermos of black coffee long since gone cold. Early starts meant fewer interruptions, and she liked the quiet of the range before the soldiers rolled in. Today's task was a stubborn target retrieval system in Bay 4, a tangle of cables and servos that had been malfunctioning for months. The soldiers had worked around it, manually resetting targets or avoiding the lane altogether, but Clara wasn't one for half measures. She crawled into the service hatch, her flashlight catching glints of dust and metal. The voices came an hour later, the same group of young soldiers from the day before. What's she doing now? Fixing the coffee machine? One quipped. Bet she's just here 'cause someone owed her nephew a favor, another said, laughing. Clara ignored them, her hands deep in the machinery. The system was a mess: misaligned gears, a frayed cable, and a sensor that hadn't been calibrated since the Clinton administration. Her tool roll held instruments that didn't come standard. Precision drivers, custom gauges, tools she'd collected over decades of work that demanded more than good enough. 30 minutes later, she triggered the test sequence. The targets glided back and forth with a smooth hum, precise as a metronome. The range officer, a grizzled sergeant named Torres, stopped mid-sentence, his clipboard forgotten. For the first time in months, the system worked perfectly. Clara packed her tools with the same care she'd used to unpack them, each piece slotted into its place. As she stood, she caught the soldier's eyes, surprise mixed with grudging respect. Even a stopped clock's right twice a day, one muttered, but his tone lacked conviction. Clara's gaze drifted to the crate where the damaged Beretta still sat. She ran a finger along its barrel, slow and deliberate, like a mechanic assessing an engine. She didn't pick it up. Not yet. But someone else was watching. A staff sergeant named Marcus Shade Turner, leaning against a wall, his eyes sharp with the kind of attention that missed nothing. He'd seen her fix the target system, seen the way her hands moved, and he was starting to wonder. The breakthrough came on a Thursday, when a Green Beret team stumbled back from a grueling field exercise, their gear caked in mud and sweat. They dumped their rifles on the armory tables, exhaustion etched into their faces. One of them, a lanky operator named Carter, hefted an M4 carbine that looked like it had been through a war zone. "This thing's a piece of junk," he growled. "Jams every time I cycle it." The armory chief, a veteran named Lopez, gave it a quick once-over. "Carbon buildup, probably. You guys run these harder than a combine harvester." He set it aside with a shrug. "I'll strip it later. Might be time to retire it." Shade lingered as the team filed out. He'd been watching Clara for days, noting her quiet efficiency, the way her tools weren't standard issue, the results she got. Unlike the younger soldiers, he'd been around long enough to recognize skill that didn't advertise itself. "Lopez," he said quietly, "before you scrap that M4, let the maintenance lady take a look." Lopez glanced at Clara, who was organizing her tools after recalibrating a ventilation fan. "Her? She fixes walls and HVAC units." Shade picked up the M4, feeling its familiar weight. "Yeah, well, she also fixed that target system nobody else could. And I heard Captain Hayes let her tune his personal Glock." Lopez raised an eyebrow. Everyone knew about Hayes's Glock, a custom piece modified by a gunsmith in Texas who charged 5 figures for a trigger job. "No kidding," Lopez said, setting the M4 down carefully. "What's the worst that can happen? It's headed for the trash anyway." Clara was working nearby, adjusting a blast shield that had been ignored for years. She didn't look up, but her peripheral vision caught the M4's issues: a sticking bolt, a worn gas ring, a slight misalignment in the upper receiver. She waited until the range cleared, the evening settling into the hum of cooling equipment. Then she approached the rifle. Her hands moved with the precision of a surgeon, finding the balance point, tracing the wear patterns. This wasn't curiosity, it was instinct. She disassembled the M4 methodically, laying out each part in a grid only she understood. The problem was clear. The bolt carrier was binding due to a misaligned cam pin, a fix that required tools most armorers didn't own. Her tool roll produced a custom reamer and a micrometer that gleamed under the fluorescent lights. She worked in silence, her adjustments measured in fractions of a millimeter. Shade watched from the shadows, his mind flashing back to Iraq, 2014. A dusty outpost, surrounded by enemies, their weapons failing under relentless heat. A contractor had shown up, no name, no insignia, just a black duffel and a tool kit like Clara's. By morning, every rifle ran like new, each bolt carrier etched with a tiny, intricate pattern, barely visible unless you knew to look. Shade stepped closer as Clara held the M4's bolt carrier to the light. There was the same pattern, etched with a precision that wasn't taught in any manual. Their eyes met. Clara didn't flinch, but something passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of shared secrets. "You've got steady hands," Shade said softly. "So do you," she replied, noting the scars on his knuckles, the kind that came from close-quarters work. He nodded at the bolt carrier. "That's clean work. Not standard issue." Clara's voice was even. "Just maintenance." But her tone said they both knew better. Shade backed away, pausing to address the younger soldiers still loitering by the water cooler. "You boys might want to watch your mouths," he said, his voice low but sharp. "That lady's forgotten more about rifles than you'll ever learn." One of them, a cocky private with a patchy beard, started to laugh. "Come on, Shade, she's just what?" Shade's tone was ice. "Finish that sentence." The private's mouth shut. Shade's eyes swept the group. "Start treating her like she belongs here." "Because she does." Captain Daniel Hayes walked in moments later, his presence commanding the room. At 52, he was a legend among the Green Berets, a man who'd seen enough combat to know the difference between skill and showmanship. He'd heard the whispers about Clara, seen the target system she'd fixed, and noted the way Shade spoke about her. He stood by her workbench, arms crossed, watching her adjust a scope mount with surgical precision. No challenge, No interruption, just the quiet observation of one professional sizing up another. Then Hayes did something unprecedented. He unholstered his personal Glock, a piece modified by a master gunsmith in Austin, a weapon no one touched without his explicit permission. He set it on Clara's workbench and stepped back. The room went still. Even the range's constant hum seemed to pause. "Is he serious?" a soldier whispered. "Nobody touches Hayes's gun." Clara didn't hesitate. She set down the scope mount, adjusted her gloves, and picked up the Glock. Her fingers moved over it like a pianist over keys, tracing the frame, the slide, the trigger guard. She found the issue in sequence's subtle misalignment in the recoil spring guide, causing intermittent cycling failures. Most armorers would need hours to diagnose it, if they caught it at all. Clara fixed it in under a minute, using a tool so small it looked like a dental pick. She slid the Glock back to Hayes without a word. He picked it up, cycled the action, and nodded once, not out of obligation, but out of respect. "Solid work," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who didn't offer praise lightly. Then he walked away, leaving Clara with the M4 and a room full of stunned onlookers. Word spread through Fort Ramsey like wildfire through dry grass. By the next morning, soldiers were murmuring about the woman who'd fixed Hayes's Glock. Not loudly, but with the kind of hushed curiosity reserved for someone who'd earned it. "She's not just maintenance," one said. "Did you see how she handled that bolt group? Like she was born with it," another added. The stories reached Master Sergeant Paul Whitaker, the base's senior armorer, a man who prided himself on knowing every weapon in the armory better than his own children. Whitaker wasn't thrilled about being upstaged. He pulled Clara's file, expecting a standard contractor profile. What he found was a single page, sparse and cryptic. No military training, no listed MOS, no clear career path. But her security clearance was higher than his, and her work history included a single line: SOTG, do not contact. Whitaker had seen that designation once before, in a classified briefing about operations that didn't exist. Special Operations Task Group Black Ops, the kind that left no records and no survivors to talk about them. Before he could dig deeper, his computer pinged with a message marked classified, eyes only. He opened it, and his stomach dropped. MSGT Whitaker, you are directed to cease all inquiries regarding Contractor C. Mitchell. Further attempts to access classified records will result in immediate review of your clearance and disciplinary action. Acknowledge receipt. The message was unsigned, but the command authority was unmistakable. Whitaker typed a quick acknowledgement, deleted the message, and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Whoever Clara was, she was no ordinary contractor. Across the base, Chief Warrant Officer Elena Vasquez was having her own revelation. She'd been walking past the range when she saw Clara calibrating a rifle scope, her hands moving in precise, almost ritualistic patterns. Vasquez froze. She'd seen those exact movements before, in a Virginia training facility, during a classified session on advanced optics for a mission that never made it into the books. The instructor, a quiet woman who called herself Jane, had shown them techniques that saved Vasquez's team in Syria 3 weeks later. Now, here was Clara, moving the same way, using the same tools. Vasquez approached cautiously. "Excuse me, MS. Mitchell," she said. Clara looked up, her hands still working. "I was wondering if you know anything about advanced optics calibration, the kind that requires specialized training." Clara's hands paused, just for a moment. Her eyes met Vasquez's, and something unspoken passed between them. "I know a bit about optics," Clara said carefully. "Picked it up here and there." Vasquez nodded, a faint smile tugging at her lips. "I bet you did. You've got good hands." "Professional." Clara's response was simple. "Thank you. So do you." They understood each other perfectly. Vasquez called the base commander later that day. "Sir, about Clara Mitchell's clearance level." "Stop." The commander cut her off. "Need to know only." "You don't need to know." The line went dead. Over the next week, the range's atmosphere shifted. Weapons began appearing near Clara's workbench: rifles with inconsistent groupings, pistols with sluggish triggers, scopes that wouldn't hold zero. No formal requests, no paperwork, just quiet trust. Clara maintained her routine. Same navy polo, same methodical approach, same invisibility. Even the base's working dog, a German shepherd named Rex, seemed to recognize her as part of the landscape, watching her pass without a growl. The younger soldiers were slower to adapt. One private speculated Clara was someone's aunt with connections. He found himself reassigned to latrine duty in the base's swampiest corner, where the mosquitoes were relentless. After that, the speculation stopped. The real test came on a Monday, when Hayes and his team walked into the range, 48 hours from a high-stakes deployment. Their gear needed to be flawless, lives depended on it. Hayes approached Clara's workbench, his M110 rifle slung across his chest. "Won't hold 0 past 300 yards, he said without preamble. "We ship out Wednesday." Clara looked up, saw the team standing a respectful distance back, their eyes focused. This wasn't a routine fix, it was mission critical. She noticed something new at her workbench, a custom weapons rack, padded and professional, with a small brass plaque that read, "Let her fix it." No signature, but the intent was clear. Hayes gave her a nod, not a command, but an acknowledgement of equals. Clara took the M110 and began her work. The issue was subtly harmonic vibration in the barrel, causing point-of-impact shifts under sustained fire. It was the kind of problem that could take days to diagnose. Clara had it fixed in an hour, using tools most armorers didn't know existed. She handed the rifle back to Hayes, who shouldered it, checked the scope, and fired a dry shot at a distant target. A rare smile crossed his face. "Perfect," he said. The team deployed on time, their gear as ready as their training. That evening, as Clara cleaned her workbench, she found 3 more rifles waiting, each tagged with a simple note. "Please check." No names, no units, just trust earned through competence. She adjusted her gloves and got to work. The wall she'd patched weeks ago held firm. The target system ran smoothly. The range buzzed with the sounds of soldiers preparing for missions that might not bring them home. And in the middle of it all, a woman in cargo pants and a maintenance badge made sure their tools were ready. Clara Mitchell wasn't just a contractor. She'd been something else, once someone who worked in shadows, fixing weapons for missions that never made the news. The clearances, the classifications, the orders to disappear changed her title, but not her purpose. She was still the one who made the difference, one rifle at a time, one repair at a time, ensuring perfection in a world where mistakes cost lives. As she packed her tools, Clara glanced at the plaque on the weapons rack. "Let her fix it." She didn't smile, but her eyes softened. The mission hadn't ended, it had just gotten quieter. And that was enough. What do you think of Clara's story? How do you feel about the themes of violence and injustice woven into her journey, whether it's the dismissiveness she faced or the unspoken weight of her past? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe competence should outweigh prejudice in high-stakes environments? Take a stand and let us know your perspective.